So now let's say during this whole process, Gary's making his own changes. So I'm going to slip over to Gary's command line, and I'm going to clear the back scroll. And then let's jump over to a site in the browser. So now I'm on loc.gitsite.gary.com. Now Gary's going to make a modification to the description of the body field. So let's go ahead and go to Structure, Content Types. Next to Article, let's go ahead and go to Manage Fields again. And under Body, we'll click Edit. And now for the help text here, I'm going to go ahead and put in some new text that says, "Quick reminder, write clearly and concisely. We don't want people falling asleep." I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and click Save Settings. Now if we go back to the Features Listings page, we should see that it's overridden. Sure enough, it is. Okay, so now Gary's going to go through the same process that we did and recreate the module and override all of the current files that are in the articles module directory. I'm going to go ahead and download this and expand it. Now I'm going to copy the code and I'm going to go over to Gary's website, and under the Sites All Modules, Features, and then Articles folder, I'm going to go ahead and paste in all of these files. Now if we go back to the command line and we do a git status, we'll see that those same two files that had changed in our local repository have changed for Gary as well. So now if we do a git diff here, we're going to see our change here. Quick reminder, write clearly and concisely. And then we see some other changes that got pulled into our other commit that we did locally when we submitted the edit form for the first time. Now this could be problematic because these are changes to some of the same lines that were made on our local repository. So we might see a conflict this first time when we make the change. But let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to hit Q to exit out of the editor. Then I'm going to do a git commit. I'm going to skip the staging area with -A, and then the message is change the description of the article body field. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, now if we try to do a git push at this point, we're going to fail because we haven't pulled in our changes from the remote site. So you see we have rejected. So let's go ahead and do a git pull. And when we do that, we do see a conflict. So let's go ahead and take a look at this file, the articles.features.field.inc file, and resolve those conflicts. So I'm going to jump to the directory, and I'm going to open up articles.features.fields.inc. I'm going to scroll down until we see our conflicts. So here's our first conflict. It's the number of rows that changed on our local site versus Gary's site. Now this is one instance where the rows setting is being pulled in as a default. And so this first time that we submit the form, it's going to cause a conflict. Now we want this to be 10, and if we wanted to make sure that this is what we wanted, we could look at the commit history to see what our coworker had committed. So let's go ahead and remove everything around that line in order to prepare it to resolve the conflict and save it. And then I'm going to scroll down and we'll look for any other conflicts. Okay, it actually looks good. I'm going to do a quick search for a bunch of left-facing arrows to see if there's any additional conflicts. It looks like everything is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the command line, and I'll do a quick git status. We see that we have the conflicted state on our file, and so we're going to resolve this. I'm going to copy the path and do a git add, and then the name, and then we'll commit this. So the command here was git commit, and then the message was fixed number of rows conflict. Let's go ahead and push this now. So we got an error again, but this time it was just for the master to master push. The develop to develop push went through okay, and we can see the commit hashtags for that. The reason for this is that we did a pull into our develop branch, but it didn't pull into all the branches at once. Whereas our push is pushing all of our branches that are linked up with the remote site at the same time. So in order to remove this error message, we would need to switch to the master branch and pull down in order to update the branch. Now when Gary downloaded these updates, it meant that now the code base is a little bit different than what he has in his database because of the change that we made in our development environment. So let's go ahead and jump to a site in the browser, and let's go to the list of features. And when we look at articles, we see this new state that says needs review. If we click on this, we see that it's our fields here that needs review. So what this indicates is that there is a change in our code that hasn't been pulled into the database yet. Now, when it's the other way around, when we have a change in our database that isn't in code, then we see the overridden label here. So if we click Review Overrides, we'll see the change listed here. Now, in order to update the database, in order to reflect what's in code, we're going to do a revert. Now, this might sound a little confusing because we're not exactly reverting a change on our site. We're pulling in a new change. But when it comes to a feature module, what we're doing is reverting back to the code, even if the code is newer than the database. So we can simply select this and click Revert Components. And now if we took a look at our change and we went to Structure, Content Types, and then next to Article, went to Manage Fields, and then next to Body, clicked on Edit, and scrolled down, we see that now it shows rows 10 instead of the default 20. So Gary has successfully pulled in the change that we made on our local feature. Now let's go ahead and complete the cycle by syncing up our local repository with the change that Gary made. So I'm going to jump back to the command line, and I'm going to switch over to the development site, and I'm going to clear the back scroll. Let's go ahead and do a git fetch. Now we can do a git status to take a look at what's different. So our branch is behind Origin developed by 2 commits. Now this was the original commit by Gary to his own repository, followed by the commit that resolved the conflict. Let's go ahead and do a git pull. Now this time we had a smooth integration, and from here on out, every time we modify this field, we'll get the same thing. There won't be any conflicts unless the same component was modified on both sides. So now if we go back to our development site, I'm switching over to the tab here on my loc.gitsite.com, and I refresh the feature listing, we see something interesting. The state here is default even though we've pulled in a change. Now if we take a look at the field that we modified, I'm clicking Structure, Content Types, clicking Manage Fields next to Article, and then clicking Edit next to the body field. We'll see the text that Gary added, and we just pulled into our repository. So depending on the feature component, sometimes features will update the feature automatically, and other times you'll see the needs review. In general, it's always good practice when you know that there's been an update to a feature to take a look at its state on the feature listings page to see if there's any modifications that need review before they get pulled in. So what we did now is successfully synced up 2 changes to the same component on the same feature module that's shared across 2 different development sites. Now the process may seem a little complex, especially if you're used to working alone and making rapid modifications to configuration without worrying about anybody else making modifications that might mess you up. But this process that we just walked through is sustainable. We have a record of every change that's made in the database, so if something gets broken, we can roll back to various states and experiment to see what happened. We can also look at the code to see exactly what configuration changes occurred at different points in time. And this is scalable, so we can have 100 people working on the same configuration, and as long as they follow this process, we can always get an updated version of configuration for our local development environment. And when it comes to pushing to production, it's very easy because all of the changes have already been merged and they're in code, so all we need to do is update the feature on the remote site, which sometimes happens automatically.